In our previous video, Easy Bake Episode 3, we made a sandwich bread from enriched dough. That kind of dough also makes awesome, soft, pull-apart dinner rolls that go well with most meals and are fun to make and to present. And that's what we're going to make today. The specifics of this recipe, ingredients, quantities, etc., can be printed off our website. So in this video, I'll cover just a few salient steps. Start by melting a 1/4 cup of butter. This is salted butter. And do 1.5 cups of milk. And this is 2% milk. And while that's warming up and the butter's melting, I'll gather together the rest of the ingredients for this recipe. Into the warm milk and butter, I'm going to add a small quantity, somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 cup of sourdough starter. The addition of the starter is totally optional because I'm also going to add instant yeast. I just really like the flavor that the starter adds. If you don't have any sourdough starter, just leave it out. Don't worry about it. Then mix in the dry ingredients, which consists of the flour, the salt, the sugar, and the yeast, the instant yeast. Again, the quantities are on our website and can be printed off. After you've combined the wet and dry ingredients, you should cover the bowl and allow it to rest for about 10 minutes to give the time for the flour to absorb the liquid. After this short rest period, you can knead the dough for about 5 minutes right in the bowl. Or you can do the same stretch and fold technique that I've covered in each of the previous Easy Bake videos. And that's what I always do. Knead for a bit, let rest for 15 minutes or so, and repeat once or twice. Wetting my fingers to keep the dough from sticking too much. So there's one stretch and fold. I'll do probably 1 or 2 more. This is the second stretch and fold. The dough starts to get kind of smooth and silky and more elastic with each successive kneading session. I can also feel that the yeast is starting to kick in already. It's starting to get a little bit more lofty, the dough, not so dense. So I'll do one more stretch and fold in about 10 or 15 minutes for good measure. And now the final stretch and fold. Note the consistency of the dough here. Knowing how the dough should look and feel gives you the flexibility, the power really, to vary the type and quantity of flour you use in this recipe and still end up with a good result. Different flours absorb different amounts of liquid. So if you want to use more whole grain flour, for example, you can adjust the amount of flour and liquid and by feel end up at the same place as we are right now. This is a recipe you can start around mid-morning, and the rolls will easily be done in time for your evening meal. Between starting with the warm milk and the added sugar and the instant yeast, all of these speed up the fermentation time. This dough should be ready for the next step in about 3 hours. The last time I made these, it was less than about 5.5 hours from the very beginning to when I pulled the rolls out of the oven. Well, it's only been a couple hours since I finished kneading, and the dough's looks like it's at least double in size, and it's definitely ready to move on to the next step. I think it's just warmer in here than usual, so we'll just go with what the dough tells us. Can't argue with the yeast. Never won an argument with yeast before. Now we need to make a bunch of little dough balls. Dough balls are going to be about 2 ounces each. That's 57 grams. And this amount of dough will make about 18 rolls, 18 dough balls. I like to use a round cake tin to bake the rolls in. Other shapes work well too, something like this, for example. You just want to space the balls evenly in the pan so they're not quite touching. In this pan I can fit 13 rolls. When you get done, your pan should look about like this, and then you want to cover them and let them rise one more time for about 45 minutes. After about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on your room temperature, they should look like this. And then what I do is hit them with a little light egg wash and sprinkle them with poppy seeds. They'll brown up real nice with the egg wash, and the egg wash will also help the poppy seeds stick to them well. And into the 400-degree preheated oven for 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, voila, soft pull-apart dinner rolls. You don't want to leave them in the tin very long after you take them out of the oven, or they tend to get a little bit soggy. So we'll see what they look like inside after they have a chance to cool a little bit. These are best served warm. They're tender, tasty, and pretty good looking, I think.